Hello guys, welcome to the Passion series, and today we are going to discuss the retinal degenerations and how they can cause actually the retinal detachment. So let's get started. Before we actually start with it, a small thing, the angioid streaks. So angioid streaks are actually the dark brown or pigmented streaks, and you usually get a all except kind of a question on this angioid streaks, or you can get an image based question on this. So dark brown or the pigmented streaks which are actually anastomosing with each other, and that is the reason that sometimes they are also confused with the blood vessels. When you see on ophthalmoscopy, they differ in distribution from any normal set of vessels, and they are actually situated near the disc at a deeper level. So they are situated at a deeper level than the blood vessels. Second important thing, they will be irregular in contour. So if you are confusing it with the blood vessels, always remember, look at the distribution. There will be having irregular contour, they will be having the deeper level, and why it is actually occurring, it is due to the changes in the elastic tissue of the Bruch's membrane, and they are actually frequently associated with the degeneration. So it's a again degenerative disease, it takes place in the elastic tissue of the skin, pseudoxanthoma elasticum. So similarly, we have got in the vessels of the retina, the vascular and degenerative choroidal lesions elsewhere in the fundus. Particularly, we can get a choroidal neovascular membrane at the macula. So the common ones, we have got Paget's disease of the bone, then we have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, sickle cell disease may be associated with the angioid streak. So if you remember, I give you important mnemonic to remember the causes. You can easily use the Pepsi and you can learn the causes of the angioid streaks. So P is your pseudoxanthoma elasticum, then you have got E for Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, then we have got another P, this is your Paget's disease, sickle cell disease is S, and then you have got I. I is your idiopathic. We can have other causes also. So I think your life will become simple if you remember this Pepsi. Okay. Now we come to the benign peripheral retinal degeneration. So there are a number of degenerations which do not threaten the retina, or they are not leading to the retinal break. Benign means here which is not threatening the retina, that means they cannot lead to break or the RD. Obviously the ones that can lead to the break, that can lead to detachments, are the more severe ones. Such are called as snowflakes. So they are called as snowflakes because of their dotted white appearance, and like we have got the snowflake cataract also that we get in cases of the diabetes, that is your true metabolic cataract. And I think I always say this in classes that snow has definitely a strong relationship with the ophthalmology. We have got so many signs. We have snow blindness, we have snowball opacities, snow banking, snowflake cataract, and here again we have got snowflakes, a dotted appearance which is quite near to your ora serrata. Then we can also have the paving stone degeneration. This paving stone degeneration is actually caused by the focal chorioretinal atrophy, and then we can also have the pigmentary degeneration. Whenever we are talking about the degeneration, there are certain things that you should keep in your mind. We can have paving stone degeneration, we can have a pigmentary degeneration. This pigmentary degeneration actually looks like a honeycomb, right? Which is actually outlined by the pigment, and equatorial drusens are commonly found in elderly people. Then another important thing that we can have is a peripheral microcystoid degeneration. So basically what you can do, you can remember that there are three degenerations which are benign: paving stone degeneration, reticular pigmentary degeneration, and peripheral microcystoid degeneration. Then now coming to the malignant one, in the sense that they are associated with the retinal breaks, and basically we are more concerned about these. So one which is most important in this aspect, the one which is most important in this aspect is your lattice retinal degeneration. So lattice retinal degeneration is actually, why it is called as a lattice, because you have got the arborizing lines arranged in a lattice pattern. That is the reason. Okay, they are occurring in the peripheral fundus, and they have the long axis parallel to the ora serrata. Here we have got constantly retinal thinning and abnormal pigmentation. So retinal thinning with abnormal pigmentation is a very important feature that you are going to get here. The degeneration is a slowly progressive one. Retinal tears are common, and along with this retinal tears, we have the liquefaction. Uh, these are the things which are actually responsible for these degenerations leading to RD, because one is your retinal hole. Hole is definitely a very important causative factor that can lead to retinal detachment, and along with this we have got the vitreous liquefaction. So we have got three cases which are showing the lattice degeneration. If you look at these images, on the left there are multiple atrophic holes here. They are seen. We have got the atrophic holes here. So these are the atrophic holes, and then if you look at these whitish areas, these are the areas of the fibrosis. Okay, then in the middle you can see the pigment here. So this is actually a pigmentary lattice degeneration, and what you are having, this one, can you see, this is your horseshoe retinal hole. Retinal hole most commonly is the horseshoe shaped, and the most common quadrant is your supratemporal quadrant. And then you have got a linear break. Here you are having a linear break, and there is a detachment here along the arrows. You are having this detachment. So basically this lattice degeneration can have different kind of associations, and it can lead to the retinal detachment. Now one thing is called as white without pressure. Now what is the exact meaning of this? White without pressure. So it is white. White means pale discrete areas of the retinal periphery without means without the application of any external pressure. They are result of vitreous traction, which could result in the formation of a retinal break. So as the name explains, it is white. White means pale. You are having the discrete areas which are present in the periphery even without applying the external pressure. And because they are without the pressure, that means they are due to the traction, that is fibrosis, and that can lead to the retinal hole. Then you have got now the pigments. So you can have pigment proliferation, you can have clumping. So when I talk about this pigment proliferation or the clumping, this occurs in the equatorial region or in the ora serrata. I hope you know what is ora serrata. Ora means the origin, right, and serrata means uneven. So you have got uneven margin from which the retina is originating, and this pigment can be present, you know, this can be in the retina, it can be in the choroid, or it can be in the both. But if I talk per se in the equatorial region means that is somewhere between the anterior pole and the posterior pole of the eyeball. So in the equatorial region you can have this focal pigment proliferation with a retinal tear. And a very important thing is that PVD is associated with the adhesions in this area. So if you are having a PVD, you can look for these changes, right? Now another important thing is your diffuse chorioretinal degeneration. So diffuse, number one thing, and chorioretinal, this is usually associated in the myopic eyes. Now if you remember what were the changes in the high myopia, you were having the posterior staphyloma, then you were having the Foster Fuchs spots in the choroid, you are having the lacquer cracks, tessellated fundus, we are having, you know, peripheral retinal degenerations, we are having the lattice leading to the retinal hole. So we are expecting these many changes. Choroid is depigmented, retina becomes thin, and that is the thing that is responsible for a retinal hole. Now if you remember your risk factors of RRD, one of the important factors is your high myopia. So particularly here I am talking about the high myopia, which is actually a pathological kind of myopia, also called as the degenerative myopia. Second important thing is that when you see the complications of high myopia, so if you see the complications of high myopia, important complication is a retinal detachment. When you look at the risk factors of retinal detachment, we have high myopia. So both are interrelated. Chorioretinal scars could be there from the inflammatory process, particularly, you know, if they are peripherally situated, and they can lead to retinal hole. And that is the reason whenever a patient of high myopia comes to us, we always advise to go for the indirect ophthalmoscopy in order to see what is the extent of these degenerations, what is the you know, problem that they can lead to the retinal hole, and what is the probability that it could lead to retinal detachment. Then we have got the cystoid retinal degeneration of the peripheral retina. Cystoid retinal degeneration of the peripheral retina. So this type of degeneration is actually present in varying degrees in all the eyes. Most of the eyes we have this, but tends to increase with the age, and in the very old it may even lead to the retinal detachment. So in many people we can have these retinal degenerations, and it can even lead to the retinal detachment. Now another important thing is your retinoschisis. Now first of all, what is retinoschisis? The word schisis actually means the splitting of retina. So retinoschisis means the splitting of the retina. And if I am talking about the senile retinoschisis, that means we are talking with aging also, there is a probability that there can be a split of retina. Now important thing is that this splitting is not taking place at the level of subretinal space. Like we have got a thing called as the RPE layer. This is your RPE layer, and then you have got the thing, this is called as neurosensory retina. So it is not taking place at this level, rather what I told you as a open. Do you remember the open, which opens the gate for the retinal diseases? So most of the retinal diseases actually takes place at two layers, and the easy way of remembering is open. So OP means we have got outer plexiform layer, and IN means it is the inner nuclear layer. So basically retinoschisis is the splitting of the retina at the level of this outer plexiform and inner nuclear layer. Then it is more common in hypermetropes. I think this is one thing which is more common in hypermetropes. Otherwise degeneration related things are more common in the myopes. So I think this is an important point. Usually it is bilateral and lower temporal quadrant. Now again this is important, because if you talk about the whole, then whole is actually more common in the supratemporal quadrant. This is more common in the lower temporal quadrant, and it is progressing slowly and gradually. Then it produces an absolute field defect starting in the upper nasal field. Why in the upper nasal? Because it is in the lower temporal quadrant. So you know that the visual field which is affected is always diagonally opposite. So because it is most common in the lower temporal, it is affecting the upper nasal field, and then it is slowly and gradually enlarging towards the fixation point. Now when the retinoschisis is affecting the macula, which is obviously rare, central field is also lost. So I think this is predictable. If the macula is involved, it has to lead to the loss of central vision, and you can also have breaks. So breaks can also be there in the inner and outer layers. Retinoschisis can be confused with the retinal detachment, so it can come into a DD. So when you are solving a question related to the retinal detachment, you can have very well in the option, one of the options is retinoschisis. Usually you get four things there. Again remember, one, you can have a RD. Number two, you can have the retinoschisis. Then I can have retinal break or a retinal hole, and number four, I can have the retinal dialysis. I can also have the retinal dialysis, detachment from the root. So basically you should be very, very clear regarding these four things. Okay, now retinoschisis has to be differentiated from the presence of any absolute field defect or by the immobility and transparency of the inner layer. No treatment is indicated. Another important thing is that if you have retinoschisis, no treatment is indicated except in progressive symptomatic retinal detachment. So if the person is having retinal detachment, it's a ophthalmic emergency. If the person is having retinoschisis, we are not giving any immediate treatment. And those patients who are having the senile retinoschisis, all those patients who are actually having the senile retinoschisis, what you have to do is periodic observation, because they can go to detachment. So follow up is important, screening is important, for the observation is important. Now when the schisis is accompanied by rhegmatogenous retinal detachment, you will have to give the treatment of RRD, that is your scleral buckling and the encerclage operation, the vitreoretinal surgery, all those things. Means basically it is a treatment of RRD and not the retinoschisis. Now talking about the juvenile one, having been completed with the senile retinoschisis, now we come to the juvenile retinoschisis. So this juvenile one is a hereditary disorder in which there is a splitting of the retina at the level of nerve fiber layer with the development of nerve fiber layer breaks. So this is something different. Here we are not having the splitting at the level of outer plexiform and the inner nuclear layer. Here we are having the splitting at the level of nerve fiber layer, and this can be associated with the cystoid changes in the fovea, which is leading to the retinal folds radiating from the foveal center in a petaloid pattern. So don't think that if I'm talking about the retinoschisis, it is same as that of senile as well as juvenile. So it's quite different, and the definitions are very different per se. Senile is at the level of outer plexiform and inner nuclear, while juvenile is actually at the level of nerve fiber layer. So these are all actually the risk factors of the retinal detachment, and you have to think about the retinal detachment risk whenever you are dealing with such retinal degenerations. Thank you and happy ophthalmology.